Sigma because I felt like I want to go somewhere else. After joining there, it was like I already had that intention of going to masters or higher studies when I was in IIIT itself. And and the second point which you said was like I could have moved to some other product company. Yeah, that could have been a very good opportunity for me. But I would say like I thought getting an international exposure and an international level degree would get me a better exposure and a better experience. I've heard a lot of good things about the institutions here in the US, so I thought like uh, going for higher studies was a good option. Like I also had two options. Like I also appeared for GATE, and then I appeared for GRE. So it was a very tough call. Like Gate is like a very low on my budget, and it is pretty easy for me to get there in terms of finances. But yeah, it needs a lot of effort in terms of like I need to prepare a lot. GRE, of course, I need to prepare, but the thing is, the things what I'm gonna get in return, I felt like. The exposure and the quality of the education is pretty high, so I thought like I just go for this. So I would say, yeah, it was very pre-planned thing for me. So not like New Sigma was okay, like it was good, but then I decided, but it was like almost like a pre-planned thing.
Okay, so before starting the job itself, you had in mind that yeah, you want to go for MS, and slowly you worked on your profile also.
Yeah.
But would you recommend someone to like bring the gate option in between? Because I think preparing for both of them can be really tricky.
Yes, yeah, actually preparing for both was tricky. I would say I wouldn't have done it if you ask me now, I wouldn't have done it. Like if you put the same person me in that situation, I wouldn't have done it. I was kind of distracted. Uh, I would say like it actually did take away a lot of time for me
Hmm.
concentrating on both. Like I would say like yeah, just concentrate on one. If Gate is not, it is like both are good options. Like I just chose this. I had my reasons, so which I've told earlier. Gate is also a very good option. Like it depends on like various factors like your finances and your the level of research which you want to do. So I just chose this.
Okay. So I think for people who are watching, the key thing is plan in advance. Already have a thought that even if you're going to go for work, get the GRE and things sorted. If you're into gate, yeah, probably then you'll have to take another line. But yeah, that's what not this call is for. Um, Also, the kind of, I think, as Hari mentioned, the kind of exposure and the opportunities were way different than just working in India and probably changing from one product company to other. So that's what I the key takeaway. The next question I would ask to Giri was, so right now we are all very familiar with the computer science stream, and a lot of people go. I have talked to them, but I I have not very familiar. I'm not really familiar with the electronics. Like how does the difference scales up for electronics education in IIIT to electronics education? What did you study in US? So what would you call the key difference between both of your undergrad and masters?
So, key difference between undergrad and masters with respect to electronics, I would say it was more application oriented.
Hmm.
Like in masters, it was more application oriented, but in undergrad, it was more of theory.
Hmm.
We did have labs and stuff, but it was again more focusing on the like proving the theoretical concepts only. It wasn't where yeah, so the idea in the labs in IIITDM, the assignments, everything like the experiments were based on proving, like we studied something in theory. Let's just try it out to see whether the theory is working in practice. But the education here in US, it's more of okay, I've learned some theoretical concepts, but uh, given all those knowledge, would you be able to design a real world system? So they won't give you the intermediate steps. of like apply this theoretical concept here or stuff like that. But like it's the initial background is given and the end product is given. It's up to you to figure out how you're going to design your system.
Okay. So
So
okay, so another question would be uh, regarding the labs and facilities. So, I mean, in India we do have, but uh, so they do provide all levels of like laboratory facilities which you can like access in universities, and say you're trying to build something electronic component or like whatever you want, and they have all the facilities.
So, facility wise, of course, you cannot sometimes compare, but like they might have like in I studied at University of Michigan. They had a lot of facilities, a lot of options, a lot of equipments to use. But in the end, at the end of the day, like you'll be using only a limited number of equipments.
Hmm.
You might have a lot of options, but on your day-to-day basis, like you'll be using one limited number of equipments. And those things IIIT had.
Okay.
IIIT has those basic infrastructure, like which is as good as what is needed in like in our day-to-day like experiments.
Hmm.
But the accessibility when we were there, like to access, we had the equipments, but it was not open access to anyone at any point.
Okay.
So the level of accessibility, suppose if I have an idea and I want to implement it, like I don't need to ask any permission to ask to
Okay.
use an equipment.
Okay.
But that accessibility was a little bit restricted when we were there. But
Okay.
I heard from students that it has changed a lot these days.
Okay.
So
That's
I
good.
can't comment.
Change
Yeah,
for the good, I hope, right?
hopefully, yeah.
Okay. All right. So probably the next question, I think for all of you, maybe Avinash can start. How did you choose this? Your like you went to UIUC, University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. So how did you finalize? If I remember correctly, you had like multiple options, but how did you pinpoint that this is the university you want to go?
Yeah, so I had multiple options, but out of the options that I had or the universities from which I got an admit from, I felt US is one of the best options there because for a couple of reasons, right? So the first reason is basically it's one of the top 5 computer science schools in the United States, which means that it has a lot of exposure to the industry. So many people from the companies come to the university to give talks or to the career phase to hire people. These all things made me realize that it's one of the best schools to study in if I want to have a good industry exposure. So that's the primary reason I've chosen UIUC. And also, the area of interest that I'm interested in is basically machine learning. So I found a lot of professors doing a great work in that area, uh, as well as some of the topics that professors are working on are of high interest to me. So that's the second reason that I chose UIUC.
Okay. What about you, Giri? Uh,
So
yeah.
how I chose the university, like I was very specific. I was very picky when even while applying the university, like I just applied to 4 5 university.
Hmm.
While choosing the university itself, I picked where like robotics. Like my area of interest was robotics. So University of Michigan is one of the like top two universities in the US.
Okay.
So like I applied for University of Michigan, UPenn, University of Southern California, and Georgia Tech. Like these four are reputed universities for robotics, and in that like I felt like University of Michigan has a wide variety of infrastructure. Like it is an automotive hub, so the trending area in robotics is self-driving cars. So
Hmm.
I felt University of Michigan would be a good option for me, and it is like based on my experience, it is one of the best universities for robotics.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good to hear. Same question to Hari, but I would all if you can also elaborate on when there's a like choice between the ranking versus the specialization. You want to go like you got a university which is in your specialization area versus just going for the rank. So if you can add some point on that, that will be good.
Okay, so what I would say is like when I was choosing this universities when I was applying, I considered four different factors. One was professors, whether they are doing research in the field which I am interested in. Unlike when you have to choose a university, I have spent a lot of time in looking at different professors and their research work. It takes a pretty decent amount of time. So it was like whether their work is actually interesting to you or something. So I looked at that thing. The second thing is obviously the reputation of the university, and then the third thing is the finances. So it's like how costly it is to attend that school, and then the fourth thing is opportunities or the location. So actually, location is also a quite important factor when it comes to choosing university. So there are some good reputed schools, but they have the thing is like where I was like if there are two good schools reputed, but then location wise they are like close to some job hubs, like how NCSU was. Like NCSU was in Research Triangle Park, which is like a very good hub for different various tech jobs. So that actually helps when it comes to internships. Like you have so many companies in that area, so that it would be relatively much easier to land in an internship, because like one thing which the employers consider when they are looking for an internship is whether you are an in-state student or an out-of-state student. They would definitely prefer someone who is from the same state, because they have to pay you. One thing is uh, they have to pay you for relocation if you are moving from some other state. And the second thing is people want, or the companies want, to have a long-term relation with you, which is like they want to extend your internship into a co-op or something, uh, which could be possible only if you are an in-state student. So like I have a friend, or like I have a junior, and then I had a friend who both of them applied for the same job, the same internship, and I referred them to my manager. But the thing, the one was from out of state and one was from in state. My manager simply told me one thing, like, see, if I choose this guy, I'll be able to give him I'll be able to give him a co-op and continue working with him, which would make my job a lot easier than hiring someone who is very good, but still he's out of state. But so in that case, he'll be just able to work for me only for 3 months, and after that he's gone. So I'd have to go with the second guy, though he's not as good as a profile, the first profile which you have shown me. I have to still go with the second guy because I would have a long term prospect with him. So that thing, so definitely opportunities and location obviously help. So I was deciding based on these factors. And coming to the reputation, like ranking and specialization, I would say like if the college has a better location prospects, I would say like the probability of you landing an internship or a job is like will be relatively easy, though it so I'll tell you something. Like I have some friends who went to San Jose State University, and then I have some friends who went to Arizona State University, and I feel ASU is much better than SJSU. But then people who are in SJSU have more job prospects because they are in California, and Arizona is somewhat not as much as a technical hub as California. So you can see that. So you should always consider like specialization. Obviously, it matters when you go to an interview, or for a employer to pick up your resume. But at the same time, even location and all the other things also factor in.
Okay.
So I would say like just don't go only purely based on reputation, but also consider other factors which might actually help you. So this is my take. I don't know if others have a different take on it. I would also like to hear what they feel.
I have a slightly different opinion, Shubham. So it depends on what's the candidate's or student's end goal is. If it's job, definitely I definitely agree with what Hari said.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If it is research, reputation helps a lot for PhD and other stuff. Like reputation definitely has a significant factor when in like in your PhD or like whatever your research career. If it's if you are undecided, like I was undecided between job and research. For me, reputation actually helped because, and at least in the company where I am, like the big companies, like the big non-software, like non-purely software companies, they sometimes value reputation sometimes. Like at
Okay.
least in MathWorks, I do know that we go only for specific colleges because they trust the curriculum and stuff like that. So if I wouldn't say like so for CS, it is important, but at the same time, like location and things are important. As like I would completely agree with Hari for CS folks, but for electronics, specialty sometimes it matters a lot. And location, I completely agree with Hari. Like that is the same case with electronics or any field here. Location matters a lot for with respect to job. But if you are interested in research, if you're slightly interested in research, or even if you have some inclination towards PhD, then I would say factor in reputation also.
Okay, so end of like the key takeaway would be if you're focused on job or job is one of the top priorities for you, usually that is one of the priorities. So also factoring the location, and there should be a good balance of reputation versus your location and the specialization. Like you shouldn't go out do anything which you're not interested just because it's a high ranking or just because it's located somewhere. So try to have a good balance and apply. That brings another question to Giri. Uh, we I clearly remember there was a clear divide between software and hardware in India, like when you study in IIIT. So, like especially with coding and I may not be correct. You just you can correct me there. Uh, I think most of the time electronics was really into electronics, and I think little bit software or something was involved. How is the electronics education for your masters? So you mentioned it's applied, but I would still like to understand that like how much coding is involved and how much coding should people really prepare or how much should they learn about the software side of the hardware. So if you can comment on that.
So electronics in itself like has a lot of specializations. So I cannot talk for all of those areas
Hmm.
because like when I studied like in University of Michigan, they had like 10 different tracks in the electronics itself.
Okay.
So if you start with optics, they completely focus on hardware like optics and communication. Like communication these days, it's completely software,
Hmm.
but optics, what other? Actually, now looking back at it, only optics were purely focused on hardware, like probably MEMS.
Hmm.
Like you'll be using design software, but you won't be using coding as much as the other areas like controls, communication, or VLSI design, or signal processing. All of these have a software touch on them these days. So most of the work you will be doing in the industry will involve some amount of coding. You'll have to know the fundamental principles, but coding will be a important aspect of your job for the areas I mentioned just now. If you're even though like optics and MEMS, those areas don't have uh, like much of coding aspect, but it is a good skill to have in case if you run into some issues. Even like all companies would value that skill if you have some coding experience.
Okay. So how about the robotics? How intensive is coding in your specialization?
Robotics, I would say it's completely coding.
Okay.
So these days the robotics field, the hardware aspect of things has been matured already. It has matured like research wise. As these days robotics is speaking in terms of reasoning and perception, which are mostly into like machine learning, computer vision, and signal processing, those areas. So software side of robotics is still picking up, and the trend is going. The trend inside robotics is into algorithms and software side. It's mostly algorithms for which you to implement them you will need software knowledge.
Okay. So key is like you need to step up your coding skill while you're in
Yeah,
undergrad. That will really help during masters.
yeah.
Now my next question is to Avinash. So you already appeared for a job in India. You went through all the interview and placement process, and then again you made it to Facebook. Of course, that there would have been different experiences and different struggles. So um, can you point out the differences and how did you go about preparing for your job?
Okay, so this is going to be a long answer, I guess.
All right, no
Uh,
problem. Take your time.
Probably, uh, so the companies I've interviewed, in India are not. I mean, not they're not like one of the top Fortune 500 companies or anything. They're just
Sure.
some
Yeah.
startups and things like these, right?
Hmm.
So the interview preparation was completely different in India. In fact, I can say that I haven't prepared as much as I have done here, because here the competition is really high, uh, in especially in the tech side. Whereas in India too, there's a lot of competition, but people from top colleges can easily get interviews and things like these in India, right? So that was one of the best parts in India, where uh, I could get interviews from multiple companies, especially startups. So the interview process, I didn't even prepare properly for most of the companies that I interviewed for. So but in US it's completely different. Uh, Even if you are so skilled, there's always someone who's so skilled and is from a better university than you. So that is a disadvantage in itself. And so you have to be very cautious in your interview. You can't even make a single mistake, because if it puts off the interviewer in the first 10 minutes, even if you prepare very well in the next 50 minutes, it isn't going to change the mind of the interviewer, right? So you have to be very systematic in your preparation, making sure you get all the basics right, and you should not even uh, have any hiccups during the interview. You should actually feel like you're very comfortable with the questions being asked, and you should answer them very confidently. So especially for Facebook, my preparation was basically data structures and algorithms. uh, so I prepared a lot on Lead Code. Basically, that's one of the websites that the students here use to prepare for most interviews in any company across the US. Uh, and also, since I was on the data side, I had to learn some kind of machine learning stuff, which I've already been learning for the past couple of years. So it wasn't a tough job for me. Apart from that, I need to get some. I need to learn about the product sense, like how to think of a product, how to think of a problem in terms of product sense. So that was one of the key aspects of my interview preparation. Apart from that, if you just leave Facebook and consider any other tech company, the interview preparation is almost the same. So basically, all the interviewers or the companies only look for problem solving skills. They don't look for anything else. In India, let's say you apply to Amazon, they don't just ask you algorithmic questions. They ask you things about operating systems, networks, or things like this, even if it is not the primary role of the job. But in US, if it is a general new grad role, it's more than 90%, it's more than 90% going to be just about problem solving and algorithmic questions. I think Hari can relate a lot to this. He could add more points as well. In general, most of the companies only ask algorithmic questions, and leadcode.com is a very good website to prepare for such kind of interviews.
Okay. Hari and Giri, you guys can also add to your interview experience. How did you go about preparing for this?
Yeah, so to add on to what Avinash was telling, so first thing, like, I would just like to say something. So he just said he didn't prepare for any of the interviews in India. I would say that is something to inspire for, inspire him, because
I second you on that.
not everybody is Avinash. So
Yeah.
he is always prepared, so he don't have to prepare separately for any. So don't get inspired by that particular statement. Uh, Another thing is, like, yes, so a
Thanks for
lot of,
clarifying that, because yeah, that is really important. When Avinash says he didn't prepare, you have to keep in mind that he was one of the top students in COE, and he was already like, if you go
no,
for
he's
a
always
project, he would have already done most of the work. So
yeah,
yeah,
he's
when he
always
says
prepared.
the level is like really high, so you have to, I mean, he's on Facebook now, so uh, you have to prepare. And yeah, yeah, Hari,
Yeah.
go ahead. Sorry to disrupt you.
So the second thing is, like, yes, so a lot of questions here, or like the lot of interviews, they tend to be mostly on the problem solving side. They wouldn't go for any other, yeah, problem solving, and also at the same time they'll also look for your system design skills.
Hmm.
So this is what I have seen in general at different companies for new grads. But if you're going for a team specific interviews, then they'll be going for a little conceptual questions in different concepts, like in operating systems or networks. I have some friends who actually attended team specific interviews instead of just the new grad ones. For them, they actually did go into some of the operating systems, networks, and any of these questions. But trust me, I don't think I have very rarely seen someone asking tech question. I mean, like technology based questions, like some technology like Hadoop or these questions you don't generally see here because people are more concerned about the concepts rather than technologies. Technologies come and go.
Hmm.
So I would say don't stick too much to one particular technology and expect it to be asked heavily here in US. But mostly it will be on problem solving, especially the top FANG companies. They are mostly into problem solving, as Avinash was telling. So I would say like just the first and foremost thing, if you are looking for a job after coming to US, I would say start competitive coding when you are in India itself. It would help you a lot. Like I have my roommate who earlier who was from NIT, so he was doing this competitive coding for like since he was in bachelor's, and when he came to US, it was it it was very easy for him to just continue with it because lead code is also kind of problem solving space and competitive coding. If you start doing it, you will find solving these problems, you'll be much used to it. So just jump onto some code chef or like hacker rank or some competitions, coding competitions. They'll help you a lot. And my friend, he was able to crack it, like crack Google, or he got into Google and he got into Facebook. So everything he did while he was doing masters was in his free time. Whenever he gets free time, he'll just do and competitive coding or lead code or like some problem solving. Problem solving is like the most important thing which you need to have if you want to get a job.
Okay.
The thing is that.
What about Giri? What do you say about your experience?
Uh, Actually, I don't have anything new to add to what Avinash and Hari said. And plus, my interview experience is limited. I have like literally I've interned at MathWorks, and that was the only interview. The interview for the internship was my only interview till now, like here.
That's okay,
So
but how was it?
it
So
was
Giri has 100% success rate.
wow, it was a limited data point, one data point. Wow.
All right.
So problem solving is one something important. Like problem solving is consistent across wherever you go. They will expect. And if you're going into a role where you're expected to code, then expect some problem solving questions there. Apart from that, coming to engineering background, here they're going to ask you questions like fundamental conceptual questions where they expect you to intuitively explain the concepts, not theoretically state the definitions. So when they see that you are intuitively explaining the concepts, like they see like you are an expert in that area. Like they judge your expertise based on how you give answers and stuff like that. So from my experience, that like I could say like these two things, like problem solving questions and they having good strong fundamental understandings of whatever area you are in, that is good.
Okay. Um, Probably
And
then I'll go to the softer side, like how like once you transition from your like university and then you're now working, how is the work life there and how do you deal with day-to-day challenges? This is a bit broader question. You can tell about how do you organize your life or how do you handle the homesickness at times or when you miss food. So probably this, I think Hari can start with that. We need some gyan on that part.
I, actually,
Homesickness, Hari, do you have homesickness?
actually, that's a very tricky question. Like, I would say, like, do I feel that? I don't know.
Oh, you don't feel homesick at all? That's a good thing,
I
actually.
won't, I won't say not at all. I'd say yeah, but trust me, like, if you are busy with work, you've got no time to
Okay,
feel all these things. Like,
okay,
that's what I feel like, until and unless I'm sitting here somewhere and thinking about sitting idle, I
okay.
get that thought. But yeah, sometimes I do feel homesick.
Okay.
But
Keeping
uh,
yourself busy is the probably the
yeah, like
way.
you're generally, I would say like if you're working at Amazon, you're busy. They'll keep you engaged like all, And even on sometimes you sometimes you generally have a lot of work, I would say. And I really like the work which I do. So
Okay, that's good.
that could be an additional factor why I'll be, even though the time is done, like it's office time is done, I still keep thinking about it.
Okay,
I like what I'm doing. It's a very good workplace. But the thing is, like, sometimes it might get a lot hectic. So I would say uh, it is good to be, like, working at somewhere where you like, rather than somewhere which is paying you a lot more but you're not happy with it.
okay.
So that is one thing. And uh,
Like, do you guys like you have other Indian community and meet and celebrate festival or go out and things like that? Do you guys do
oh
that or
yeah, there are a lot. Like,
okay,
I wouldn't say like I would say like anybody in US, especially California and all these regions, so they have a lot of huge Indian communities where you don't actually feel like you're actually in US. Like, if you see Indians all around. So that is not like, yeah, there are festivals happening here. Like, there'll be some events happening here and there. Like, yeah, there are good number of events for Indians. So you don't have to be like, oh, we are in totally different place. Some people like also like getting, to know about different cultures, so they even attend other cultural events. Like, I know I have some friends who also attend Chinese events,
okay,
other Asian countries events. And, obviously you're in US, so you also try to get to know their culture. So yeah, there are a lot of things happening.
okay.
And yeah.
I had another question regarding you guys had some experience in India, like working. Does that help with your next job, or does that help you in any way with probably internships or jobs or something like that?
Yes, definitely, definitely, and definitely. It totally helps. So I would say, like, instead of coming right away out after your college to for masters, I would say work in India, get some experience. It actually helps a lot when you're looking for an internship, because you'll have a better resume. You'll have more number of things to talk about, and even your interviewer can look at what you have done, so it can sort of build some trust. So I wouldn't recommend anyone directly jumping off to masters. This is my personal opinion. I would
Okay,
say, like, don't jump directly into masters. I would say get some experience, get some industry experience in India, and that helps you with your internships. And your internship and your work experience in India helps for your interviews for your final full time jobs. So yes, it definitely helps.
okay. Yeah, so I think we all agree with that. I think there are a couple of questions on preparing for GRE and things like that, but I think it's very standard and most of the resources are already available. But if you guys want to answer that, please. Um, like, what tips would you give someone who wants to prepare for GRE at this point of time?
Who has the highest score here?
I think I have the lowest score here, hands
I
down.
don't,
Uh,
I don't know. I don't remember you guys'
okay, then
scores.
all right, then probably I'll answer it. Sir, I got 326, so which
Okay.
is
So you're the
okay-ish.
highest.
Correct.
I think you have to most of the time we struggle with the English part. The quant
Yeah.
part, most of us are able to manage. So if you practice daily the I think 10th level mathematics, quant part will be probably done for you. At least you are in triple IT. Uh, Mostly the struggle will be in English, and also the struggle will be with the long essay part, reading and comprehension. Like at least that was the case for me. So for GRE, I would say that start focusing with the English. People say that just mug up the words. That will help you a bit just to give you confidence. Like when you know 1,000, 2,000 extra words, it gives you confidence that okay, anything appears, you can take it or you can make sense out of it. But I think reading words is the probably the least part of the comprehension. Just comprehending that takes time. So one good thing would be to start reading international newspapers like New York Times, or if you have access to Economist, sometimes they are like available as PDFs where like long articles are there. Art and Daily is one of the channel which you can go and probably take different, very complicated essays and read about it. So mostly the reading part will help you a lot with the English aspect, and then there are like you have to go through the standard resources what the like ETS itself provides, and you can go and like solve those problems. So again, like it's applied there. Like when you go for master, they are trying to apply. So here also, it's more about whatever you know, how do you apply? Like how do you make right decision to choose the word? So practice is probably the key, and the sources are already available. So nothing much to add there. Uh, One question someone asked was, is research intern preferable to higher studies if you're going for MS, or any kind of internship is okay? Anyone can take it. Like
Is it during masters
no,
or is it
during your bachelor, like when you're pursuing, what would you prefer to have a research intern or somewhere in some company?
like, yeah, how earlier Giri was telling, like it all depends on your what your end goal is. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're more looking for somewhat like a research profile, or like you want to go into research or something, I would say like, yeah, go stick to research, do some research, and then come here higher studies again, continue doing that research. But if you are into something more like job, or like you want to get into a job,
Mm-hmm.
then probably I think both should be fine. When you're in masters, I think both should be fine. But definitely it will help you if you have like, it also depends on how many years you're planning to work in India before coming to masters. So
Mm-hmm.
like if you're anyway planning for working in India for 2 months, then probably, I mean like 2 years, then probably it's like what intern you do in your bachelor's doesn't matter much. If
Okay.
it's a research or a you know industrial one, both should be fine. But if you are low or less on time, and then you're planning to come to masters immediately, or like it's a very short time after your bachelor's, then probably make sure like it is close to your end goal. That's what I feel.
Okay. Um, Then there are a couple of questions on scholarship, which I understand scholarship is really, I mean, tricky to get, but probably what do you suggest, like if someone is looking for that?
So I would say like scholarships and NCSU are almost like very less to zero.
Okay.
But then you still have a good amount of on-campus jobs, which can help you with your living expenses. And also, if you save a little, you might save a little more if you work. But then there are other positions like TAs and RAs, which pay you like very handsome amount of money, which can cover half of your tuition at least. Uh, so yeah, but I don't see a complete scholarship, at least in NCSU. I don't know about the situation in other universities.
Yeah, so in UAUC or any other college for that matter, MS students are generally not funded. Mostly PhDs are completely funded.
Hmm.
But as Hari said, there are other opportunities for you to get back your living expenses by doing some on-campus jobs or working as a TA or a research assistant. Especially at UAUC, getting a TA is very helpful because you're going to get a monthly stipend and a tuition waiver, so it basically covers everything for you. So that's one of the biggest benefits of your UC. I think there are some other colleges that do the same thing, but I don't have much idea about them. But in general, yeah, you'll have a lot of opportunities to do on-campus jobs or work as a part-time student in part-time employee in multiple companies to cover your living expenses.
Okay. Then there's a question like, what all resources did you guys use to prepare for your um, current job, like after your master's? Like other than you mentioned Leap, um, wait a minute.
Lip
Yeah,
code.
yeah, Leap Code, and then uh, other resources if you guys use. Yeah, people want to know about that.
Yeah. So I've used Amazon. Like apart from problem solving, they focus a lot on leadership principles. That is the only unique thing about Amazon interviews. They go crazy about this leadership principles. Even after you join your job, your every task is linked to a leadership principle, or like you keep hearing leadership principles a lot. And it is like almost like that is their lingo. Amazon's lingo. You just talk everything in terms of leadership principles. So yeah, they have this kind of crazy interest in, or like crazy attachment to them. So yeah, for Amazon, yeah, you need to be a little more in, be just there are some websites which give a list of like how to prepare for them, like what kind of questions they ask and how you are expected to answer them. And apart from that, in general, for other companies, I would say like apart from lead code, there are they also go for system design questions, for which we were looking for. Is it Tushar Roy? That guy is very
Yeah.
for his, yeah, Tushar Roy's
On
design questions, and
No,
he.
I think he's not Tushar Rai. He just explains algorithms. He's a software engineer from Uber.
Yeah, yeah. There's another.
There's one more Indian who does system design on YouTube, but I don't know his name.
Yeah, so yeah, these guys are like there are some famous people who does these things, but yeah, there are good resources. Like yeah, just focus on system design as well. Like some companies do go for system design questions. So Amazon goes for one leadership principle question and then a coding question. Other companies go for system design questions and coding questions. So it all depends on the interview, but yeah. Apart from that, there are some mock interviews websites like what is that?
Pramp.
Yeah, Pram. Yes. So it helps unless you and your friend book at the same time and you see each other on the other side of the screen. So it happened to one of our friends. So yeah, it's like a mock interview thing. So where you it's like you have a coding question and you interview some other person,
Okay, I
and
remember
some
that.
person interviews back,
Okay.
and then sometimes it may so happen that you and your friend both book at the same time and you see you both are matched to each other and you both will be interviewing yourself. So quite a yeah. So apart from that, I would say yeah. I
Yeah,
Giri,
I
like
think there's
something.
one more website for system design which is called educative.io that is really good. It is basically visual learning.
Mhm.
It's also a really good website to learn system design.
Yeah, and cracking coding interviews book. That I think that would be the first place where you have to start if you are going for a software job. These are like the defaults, like cracking coding interviews, lead code,
Mhm.
and then system design. There's one I'm hearing about another graphing the system design or something. Is it the new book?
Grokking the system design. That's not a book. It's basically educative.io, I think.
Oh yeah. That's what. So graphing system design. So that is another resource. Yeah, that is new. I wasn't aware of it earlier. So that is something new which I'm seeing these days a lot. So yeah, these things are quite useful.
Anything you would like to add, Giri?
Uh, to software interviews.
No, for your job, of course.
For my job, like I would say, like anything you just learn on college, like the concepts, if you just get a grasp of it and you have a good example project that in your resume of whatever concepts you have, whatever role or whatever area you're working on, that is good. Like projects on your resume help a lot in interviews, where you can just, when they ask you about concepts, you can just pick up an example of your design in somewhere, and
Mhm.
this, and when you explain in such a way that using their projects, they'll be more interested in you.
Okay. Probably one more question I can take. So, what, looking back in hindsight, I think you all three can answer. Looking back in hindsight, what can you have done better during your undergrad, which will make the admission to top universities easier? Or, I mean, you already have done something, that's why you are here. But if you can pinpoint that, or something which people who are still studying who can do while they are in undergrad, so that they can get into good universities, yeah, that will be great. So,
Okay, so I'll start with it. So if you are by top, if you say Stanford, Harvard, MIT, Berkeley, or things like these, I would say a very good research experience in college will really help,
mhm,
and good letter of recommendations from professors. If you do some research with a professor, make sure they give you a very good letter of recommendation. Oh, you have to work in such a way that they give you a
They
good
give
letter
you,
of recommendation.
of course.
That is going to really help when people are when the administration is selecting your application for maybe an admit. Apart from that, work experience also matters a lot. If you're aiming for a non-thesis based masters, if
Mhm.
you want to do thesis, I would always say research experience is going to make your admission process very easy. Also, if you have internships from top companies like Amazon, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, whatever, so it's also going to be valued a lot during the admission process.
Okay. Um,
Uh, so for me, I would say like yeah, start competitive coding. So
mhm.
that definitely helps. Which I was like, I was not so much into it when I was in my bachelor's, but later realized like if I would have known that it was so important, I would have actually started it. And then yeah, algorithms. I know Sadagopan sir used to say this in the class like every morning wake up.
Thomas Common.
do, do this Thomas Carmen book and then start your day. That is like, yeah, in a way true. Like, focus on algorithms and data structures. Those are the question. Those are the things which most of the top companies look for.
Okay.
Problem solving is mainly based on them. So yeah, like that actually makes sense. So focus on algorithms and you can start competitive coding and yeah, and also not waste time. I realize like I have wasted a very good amount of time doing some unnecessary things, but yeah, focus on something which is useful. Like just measure, look at your what you're doing. Yeah, this is something which is very common, but a trivial thing to say, but
Okay.
uh,
So
it is important.
to summarize that, probably doing quality research if you're topping for the very high, and obviously you need to have a good like CGPA and also good recommendation letter. Also, as Hari mentioned, that having a good command over the algorithms part and probably show it through the competitive exam will be really differential for your application. There's one question where I think I should ask: Can mechanical
About
engineers?
coronavirus. Okay.
Yeah, I think that question will come in the last as well. It's very relevant. Yeah. Uh, can mechanical engineers become software engineers? In like to generalize it, if someone studied bachelor's into say chemical engineering or something else, can they apply for masters in CS? And or if they do a masters in say in chemical engineering or say some other stream non-software, can they appear for software jobs? So how does this work there?
So, so I'll start with it. So I would say, irrespective of your bachelor's, you can definitely apply for masters in CS. But I would say, like, if it would be good if you have some experience, like industry experience. Like I know a lot of mechanical folks who also join an IT company, work in an IT company, and then come for a masters in CS. So that is something which is not so rare here anyway. Like I see good number of people who do that also come here for masters in CS. So ultimately it is just like convincing the interviewer that you have good amount of experience and you can be trusted for with their software. So it's like if you have some previous experience with software, that definitely helps. But if you are directly jumping into CS masters after your mechanical without any experience, probably it's going to be a tough thing to crack. But still, if you are like very good at problem solving and all these things, you might get a chance. But the thing is like someone has to do that, has to pick your resume.
Okay.
So it's like if they can pick your resume, then probably like after you go in and then you can show your problem solving skills and crack the interview. But the thing is like picking the resume itself might be a little difficult for you if you directly jump into a CS degree immediately after your mechanical undergrad. That's what I feel like. I don't know.
Okay. Probably then the last question. Yeah, definitely it's about the coronavirus. So a person, I think she asked that she already got an admit to University of Texas, but now she's afraid to travel to US. I don't know how much you guys can help, but I think it was interesting to ask anyway. So what would you recommend? I mean, to travel or not? I mean,
So I'm in Seattle, which is now dubbed as the coronavirus capital of the US.
oh,
So I think I can answer this question. The thing is, yes, it is like right now things are like a little difficult. It is like they have given us work from home till the end of the month, so we are encouraged not to come to office uh, until and unless it is very urgent
hmm.
or like very much required. So yeah, that is how things are in Seattle. Things in Seattle are, but I would say like when is she gonna come? It's like probably it will be somewhere in August or July, I think, right?
It should be,
So
yeah.
yeah, I think
It
I
might get,
hope.
it can go anyway. It can get worse or it can go well.
Yeah,
But
yeah. So I would say like I don't know. Like some people are saying that things could be a lot more different in India because of the climate there. Like the
yeah,
virus might not spread so much
yeah.
in
I hope
climate.
summer comes. This is the first time I'm wishing summer comes faster than it
Yeah,
should.
same here. The thing with Seattle is it is always gloomy, cloudy,
Yeah,
and
really.
this yeah. So here it is a little difficult even in summer, but yeah, things might get better. Uh, but I don't exactly know how they going to be, but I think, however, whichever location you are,
Yeah, there is
yeah,
some issue.
the probability I feel is almost close to same.
Okay, so probably just to add to that, I think first of all, if you're young and you don't have any issues, you don't need to
Yes.
worry that much. Most
Yeah.
of the time, it's problem for people who already have some underlying condition who are old, and then there are like basic steps like while traveling, yeah, just have a mask and take care of not touching like everything, and just in public space, just be careful. I think there's not a big issue. If first of all, if the government allows you to travel to US, I mean, there is no logistical issue on that part, then definitely it shouldn't be a
Yeah.
problem. So yeah,
Yeah,
let's not
but
spread
bring a lot
panic
of
there.
hand sanitizers. They're
Yeah,
out of stock in US.
We
buy
ran
the
out of.
hand sanitizer as well. Yeah, so thank you for spending time and thank you guys for watching. I'll just introduce again because I think in starting I missed the streaming part. So Hari graduated from IIIT in 2016, went on working with Mu Sigma, and then he went to NCSU, and now here Hari is at Amazon. Thank you for waking up early. I think Hari has the earliest time of everyone. So thanks for spending time on Sunday. Giri, again, we all graduated in 2016. You were from the electronics batch, and then you went on to work for a company called Regcon Instruments for a year, where you design. Uh, you did the design part. Let's just say that. Then you went to University of Michigan and specialized in robotics side, and now you're working with MathWorks, and Hari Krishna, who is the latest like star of the town. So again, we all
It's
started at this.
Avinash. Shubham.
I,
You introduced Avinash as Hari Krishna.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so I'm really sorry for that. Avinash, he's the we all graduated at the same time, 2016. Hari Giri went. Oh, sorry again.
Avinash Kadimishetty.
Avinash. Okay. Um, Avinash went on working, and then again, I think you went for UIUC, and then you are now at Facebook. So first of all, congratulations and thank you for spending time with us. And probably I'll take all the links, whatever you mentioned for preparation.
let us introduce you as well. So this is yeah, we both. He is also from the same batch, 2016 pass out, and he went on to Trimble for working for Trimble for 2 years, and then now he is in Maastricht, Netherlands.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
yes.
Yeah, but I'm pursuing a business track. That's the difference, and I might not end up with a job or anything. I might have to go back to India. So that's the another side of the story. But yeah, I think there was one question whether business and technical. I would say the technical side is more predominant, and that's where you should go. But we will keep that for another talk. And yeah, thank you for spending time and I'll just take the whatever links you guys mentioned and post in the video comments. You can go through that. Some of the questions which were not covered, I think they were implicitly covered in some or the other parts of the interview, or they were already present. Uh, they were already answered in some other form. So thank you.